All right, let's jump right into this explainer and explore the totally fascinating and honestly super misunderstood relationship between boredom and brilliant ideas. Look, in our hyper-connected world, we tend to treat boredom like it's some kind of disease. I mean, the absolute second we feel it creeping in, what do? We reach for our phones, we turn on the TV, we literally do anything to just fill the void. But what if that empty space is exactly what your brain actually needs to thrive? What if doing absolutely nothing is the secret ingredient to your next big breakthrough?
We've all been there, right? It's just such a universally relatable question. Think about it for a second. You've been wrestling with this wildly complex problem at work for days. You're staring at a blank screen, you're getting absolutely nowhere, and then, the very next morning, you're standing in the shower, just washing your hair, and boom, the perfect solution just pops right into your head. Why is it that doing something with zero intellectual value seems to suddenly unlock our greatest thoughts?
You know, the prominent leadership coach Peter Bregman really hits the nail on the head here. He argues that boredom isn't just this empty void that we need to avoid at all costs. It's actually a super fertile space for creative alchemy. It is the literal starting point where the mundane gets transformed into the extraordinary. But of course, we have to ask, is this just a romanticized idea, or is there hard science backing this up? To figure that out, we're going to look at lived wisdom and real data.
So let's start with Act 1, the context. We'll look at Papa's take on the wandering mind.
Think about the author of our source material, affectionately known as Papa. You can almost picture him sitting on the back porch sharing a thought with his spouse, Colonel Debs, maybe reflecting on the life lessons passed down from his late father, Papa Q Bear. He writes that when he's bored, his mind wanders, and that wandering mind uncovers fascinating relationships between the half-formed ideas in his brain and the reality of the world around him. In his view, boredom can actually be your best friend when you need to be creative and put disparate ideas together to formulate a new concept, thought, or solution. It gives those random ideas permission to finally introduce themselves to one another. And what's really cool is how modern science backs up this exact state. They call it mind wandering. It's officially defined as the disengagement of attention from your external environment. So when your attention slips and boredom rises, your brain isn't shutting down, not at all. It's actually an incredibly active signal. Your brain is basically waving a flag and saying, hey, I've extracted all the value from this monotonous situation, and I am actively seeking something new and meaningful to process. But like anything powerful, there's a catch.
Which brings us to Act 2, the tension. Let's dive into the science of idle hands.
So the science shows us a really delicate balancing act. A study published in Scientific Reports used something called a sustained attention to response task to measure this. And they found that when our minds wander, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it actively harms our immediate task performance. Our reaction times slow down, we make way more errors on tedious tasks. But simultaneously, this exact same state drastically boosts our capacity for creative incubation and planning for the future. It's a direct trade-off.
Get this. The data from that same study showed that participants' minds wandered up to 48% of the time during tasks. I mean, nearly half of their waking time in the experiment was spent completely off task. And here is the real kicker. The sheer amount of mind wandering directly correlated with a higher number of creative insights afterward. So the more their minds drifted away from the boring task, the better they became at solving really complex word association puzzles right after.
Let's look at another study, this one from the Journal of Boredom Studies, with 124 students. Researchers induced different emotional states to see how it affected creativity, and the results are wild. When participants experienced boredom discomfort, their verbal creativity took a massive nosedive. But it caused their figural creativity, which is their ability to draw, imagine visual relationships, and think spatially, to spike the highest, even more than when they were feeling joy. So the discomfort of boredom literally shifts how your brain generates ideas. But okay, hold on a second. We have to be careful here, because pure agonizing boredom isn't just some magic portal to brilliance. If you lock yourself in an empty white room, you're probably just going to get super irritated, right? You're not going to magically invent the next iPhone. Researchers at the University of Minnesota discovered what they call the shower effect, and this adds a really crucial layer of nuance to how this creative alchemy actually works in the real world. It's all about finding a Goldilocks zone. They found that moderately engaging activities, like taking a shower or going for a nice walk, strike the absolute perfect balance. A completely boring task might just frustrate you to no end, and pure rest doesn't stimulate you at all. But a moderately engaging task puts just enough constraint on your thoughts to keep you grounded. It stops your mind from drifting into unproductive annoyance, but still leaves enough room for your ideas to flow freely. Let's move to Act 3, the connection.
We can call this the explorer in the greenhouse.
So how do we actually make practical sense of all this data? I want you to imagine your mind as a wandering explorer. If you are totally bored with nothing to anchor you, it's like wandering aimlessly through a dense, unmapped jungle. You just get lost in distraction. But a moderately engaging task, like say folding laundry or walking the dog, is like building a structured path through a beautiful greenhouse of ideas. The path keeps your feet moving steadily, but your eyes and your mind are completely free to explore all the exotic, strange connections growing around you.
And this comparison is exactly why you need both types of downtime in your life. Completely boring activities give you the quiet time required for focused linear problem solving. You need that. But moderately engaging activities do something entirely different. They allow your mind to safely untether itself. They create an environment where your brain can freely move around, maybe pulling a random memory from last year and connecting it to a problem from today to form a brilliant new solution.
All right, let's wrap this up with the synthesis, cultivating creative alchemy.
Because understanding the science is great, but applying it, that's where the real magic happens. So here are your key takeaways. First, boredom creates the necessary space for insight, but you have to cultivate it. It doesn't just happen on its own. Second, try pairing your mental downtime with a moderately engaging activity. Take that walk, take a long shower, to hit that creative sweet spot. Third, start recognizing mind wandering as a legitimate cognitive tool, not a failure to focus. And finally, please let go of the guilt surrounding unproductive daydreaming. The magic isn't the boredom itself, but how intentionally we fill the space it creates.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. We're going to leave you with this final, Papa-inspired thought. The next time you find yourself stuck in a waiting room, or maybe standing on a train with a completely dead phone, don't panic. Take a breath and ask yourself, how will you use your next moment of boredom as a friend and mentor to put disparate ideas together? Embrace that wandering mind, folks. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.